Hello, hello, beautiful Lovetarians. Would you like to know how to transform the oppression of divine feminine into power? If you do, we have a perfect guest to guide us on this journey. With me here today on the Lovetarian podcast, we have Claire Atyeo. Do I spell your name? Do I pronounce your name properly, Claire?
You did, yes, you did.
Great. She is a shamanic practitioner. She is a best-selling author. She's a female empowerment coach. So, Claire, do tell, what is the oppression of the divine feminine if we don't know? Some women might actually not know that such a thing exists.
Ooh, encapsulating it in a few words is basically impossible. The divine feminine has been oppressed since the record of time. That we have had that imbalance. If we look at our history, it's been the masculine that's in charge, and yet when humanity started out, it was an equality between both the masculine and the feminine. Both understood that there was a need for the other. The spectrums of emotions and qualities of each was actually needed to create that balance. But somewhere along the line, and there's many theories as to when it was thrown out of balance. I mean, if you look at the Bible, they say it was when Eve enticed Adam to take a bite of the apple. If you look at other religions, they would tell you other things. There is thought that there was an imbalance. If you go back to the Egyptian time, where Isis actually reincarnated her husband because she couldn't bear the loss of him, and so she reincarnated him and had him for another night and created a child from that one night. There's so many different stories out there of when this imbalance, but there are theories. But definitely this imbalance has existed, and what is happening now energetically is bringing that balance back into line. Is we're slowly bringing that balance back into line. The problem that we're dealing with in the physical reality is that many women are swapping their femininity for masculinity to be seen, to be heard, to have those equal rights. And this is causing a kickback, which is why we have a them and us, which is not what we want. We want balance, we want unity, we want sovereignty with the two. And we have the masculine and feminine within each of us. And that's how we start to address this, is by addressing ourselves, by looking at ourselves and bringing that balance within ourselves, taking the responsibility for that.
Yeah, beautiful. So, thank you. You have written or co-written a beautiful book called Align Leaders. And has this been inspired by that topic, with beautiful, powerful women just going for it?
No, the information's been coming in the last couple of years. There's an even bigger book to be written. The Aligned Leaders is a beautiful, beautiful healing book, and I have to say we got to number 1 as well.
Yeah, congratulations.
3 continents, in 8 categories, I think. So really, really chuffed about that. It is the book is I've always said right from the beginning, it's going to be a healing book. And having now read all my co-writers' chapters, it absolutely is. There's so many different aspects of life's challenges in there and how they overcome them. No, the divine feminine for me has been coming in, I think probably because I was one of those people that really kind of tripped over to the masculine, and I've spent all my life fighting in that masculine energy to be seen, to be heard, whilst in a female body. And it's in the recent years, I think you get to a point that you think, is this ever going to work? You get tired. Is this ever? And it was through that I started really meditating and channeling information. And it was kind of like, no, what we need to do is we need to embrace the feminine, but not the feminine that we have been programmed to believe is feminine, the true divine feminine energies, because the divine feminine energy
elaborate? Can you elaborate?
Yeah, she is so strong. She is so strong. She's sexy. She's sassy. She's kick-ass. Excuse me if I can say that. She is absolutely, she doesn't take any messing. She's a warrior. She's a warrior. She knows how to fight. She doesn't need a protector. She doesn't need a knight in shining armor. Does she want companionship with the divine masculine? Absolutely, of course she does, but she wants it on an equal footing. And so what we actually do is we bring the aspects, because the divine feminine is all about intuition, it's all about nurturing, it's all about compassion, it's all of those things. And the divine masculine, it is about assertiveness, strength, logic. By actually stepping into our true divine feminine, we step into both the masculine and the feminine and balance them out within our own physical bodies. So we take all of the components of the divine masculine and the divine feminine and bring them in. So we kind of, if you get the camera right, if you kind of think that this is the divine feminine, this is divine masculine, when you're in the divine feminine and it's not balanced, you get compromising, you get sacrificing, you know, all those beautiful qualities are taken to the extreme that actually they're not self-serving in any way, shape or form. And the same thing with the divine masculine. You get narcissism, you get egotism, you get selfishness. So those are the extreme qualities. The further you get away from center, the further you get into those non-self-serving energies, those negative aspects of self, we could say. And so what we need to do is kind of bring that down into the balance. And the more we're in balance, the more we're able to kind of be, because with that balance, we get self-confidence, we get self-assured. We've got a real strong foundation of which to stand. So it doesn't matter what comes into your world, what comes into life, because we can't control anything outside of us. So things will, you know, we're living on this planet, we're living with other people, so things will always come in that are going to shake those foundations. But do they shake and crumble, or do they just shake and you kind of have to dust the dust off? And that's the difference. That's the beauty of it. And that is why everybody that is in, you do it with the work you do as well, is you get people to really understand themselves, understand where they are, and to understand where they want to go and bring that balance in for themselves so that they can build that solid foundation. And that's when we say life flows, because the energy just goes flowing through you. It doesn't matter if there's a storm and there's a torrent, and you know that river was once calm and now it's like a tidal wave. The tidal wave will just flow over you if you're on that firm balance. You will you feel it? Yes, you will. Will you duck and kind of hold on to something? Of course you will. But will you still be stood on your foundation at the end of it? Yes, you will. But if you're not got that balance, if you've not got that foundation, you can easily be swept away by it and lost.
Well, you are a female empowerment coach, so do give us some coaching advice how to build that foundation, because honestly, energies are very strong for some of us, and we feel, you know, sometimes it's hysterical, sometimes it's logical, sometimes it's inspired, and sometimes it's just plain dead. Like, yeah. How to get that balance?
It's within your practice. I'm going to be really boring and cliche and say meditation. Oh, you cannot take a development path, a spiritual path, without embracing meditation, because that is when we actually become introspective. That is when we take the time to look at ourselves and really learn who we are, where we're at, where we want to be going. The second thing after meditation, I always say, is self-love. Really understanding and bringing in that self-love, that self-nurturing, those values, those beliefs. And if you have any beliefs and values that you took on as a child, for example, which we all do because we learn by repetition, so we learn by watching what our parents did and we mimic, okay, and we can take that into adult life. But what functioned for our parents, and let's be honest, usually didn't function for our parents. With, you know, there's so many dysfunctional families out there. It's, you know, and it doesn't mean that there's trauma. It doesn't mean that there's arguments. It doesn't mean that it's a bad relationship. It just means that it's not an emotionally healthy and emotionally intelligent relationship. And so we need to look at those aspects of ourselves and be really honest. Where are we? For example, for me, for many, many years, I was on a psychological level, I was prepared for a lot. But until I opened up to my spirituality, I hadn't done the emotional intelligence. So even though from a psychology level, because I've always studied psychology with my nursing background, even though I was there with the psychology, I had the understanding, I could understand the programs that people were running, I was still falling into those programs because I hadn't worked on the emotional intelligence and emotional maturity. And so I was still reactive in a lot of situations. And so that is why self-love is very important. Bring that self-love in and look at your values, your beliefs. Are they yours? Or have you taken them on from your parents? Have you taken them on from relationships? Have you tried to mold? And obviously being an empath, and I work a lot with empaths and will mold themselves to what they believe other people want. Because they're people pleasers a lot of the time. And it's until you kind of step away and you're really honest about that. Okay, was that a people pleasing action? And really learning about yourself. So meditation, self-love, getting rid of those programs.
Claire, could you clarify how you define self-love?
There is so many different aspects to it. It's about what brings you joy, knowing why you're doing something. Are you doing it for yourself? It's in lots of ways, people will be programmed to think it's selfish, but it's about taking utter and total responsibility for yourself first.
Nice alignment with pillar 1 of the Lovetarian way. Accept 100% responsibility for your life.
It's the responsibility, the good, the bad, the ugly. It's all of our own making. It's of our own creation through our thoughts and our actions. And once you actually start doing that, I mean, you're a woman. How many times have you done something and not wanted to do it before you really started bringing in self-love? And you say yes to things and then you become resentful because you don't want to do it. Or even, I can't tell you how many times I've kind of thrown things in the oven and slammed the oven door and slammed cupboards as I'm cooking a meal because I don't want to cook a meal that day. But because I'm the woman, I'm supposed to cook the meal. But I felt disempowered because I never had that self-love and that value and those words. I was disempowered to actually say, no, I'm not cooking. I felt I had to make excuses, or I had to fill my time with something. Oh, I'm busy, I'm working. Rather than going, no, I don't want to do it today. It's not my turn. And it's little things like that. For everybody, it will be very, very different. I mean, I'm as I said, I've always been more on that masculine side than that feminine side. In the sense of I'm not very domesticated. I really take no pleasure from it whatsoever. And I think if you asked women, the majority of them would say that they don't. It's what we're doing on a daily level, what we're telling ourselves is really important as well. What we're actually telling ourselves. What is that inner voice saying? Is that inner voice saying, because for years that inner voice said to me that I was unlovable because I wasn't a stick. I grew up, I'm a 60s child. So the supermodels at the time, they were all anorexic. And because I had curves, that made me feel I was unlovable. It was the inner talk. Nobody actually did that to me. It was that inner talk because of what was outside of me, the images of what society gives us. There's so many different aspects to it, but it's that responsibility, it's that self-responsibility and knowing what you want, because many women don't know what they truly want. They know what they think they want or what they should want because of society's expectations, family expectations, parental expectations, but they never actually take the time to actually sit and think about what they really want.
That's true.
And so part of the self-love is to give yourself the time to really think about what brings you joy, what makes you happy, and how often you're actually doing that for yourself.
Yep. Great. I could not agree more with you. So being authentic, you really truly
Yeah,
loving
yeah.
yourself, whatever that means. I mean, honestly, do you believe? Because I believe that if you're truly authentic and you go into real depth of you, you will never hurt another person. You will not be, by definition, a bad person because we are innately not bad people. But some women might be afraid, oh, I'll be selfish, I'll be not taking care of my children, I will not this. I don't know.
No, I don't believe that it. Children is a really big one, and it's one, I've got a daughter, so I've kind of struggled with that, and it's because we are programmed with expectations of what a mother should be, and so we
Yeah.
try to live up to that. And I know, being a single mom, um a working single mom, a professional single mom, I know there were times when I felt guilty because I was working, but I was very fortunate that living in England at the time, I was in a very small, very affluent village. And so most of the mums were stay-at-home mums. And I can remember one summer that guilt starting to bubble up because it was the summer holidays. Where we were coming up to the summer holidays. I can't tell you how many stay-at-home mums were in dread of having time with their children.
Mm,
And that was such a blessing for me to hear that at that time, because that allowed me to release the guilt, because I was excited to be able to have taken 3 weeks off to spend with my daughter out of that
mm,
6 weeks.
mhm,
And so it's perception, it's about this perception, it's where you are energetically and how you're allowing those external influences to affect the way that you behave and think
mm.
and feel.
Yeah, yeah, great. Well, thank you for that clarification. If you have any questions for Claire, please ask in the comment box. We'll address them, whether now or in replay. Just go on, ladies. Don't be shy. There's some men too.
Yeah,
So,
there's a lot to it.
yeah. No, but that definitely resonates very much with me. Not a mother by choice. So that was another thing. I chose not to be a mother. Shocker.
Yeah. Oh, you would have really have touched and triggered a lot of women with that. And it's interesting because I had a dear friend. She lives in Saudi now, but she never wanted children.
Mm-hmm.
She never wanted children. Her children were her horses.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of abuse that she took from other women, or pity, I think the pity for her, I can remember her saying, I am sick of people feeling sorry for me,
Mm-hmm.
thinking that I can't have children, that feign pity, when actually it was a choice that she made.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they assumed that she was just putting on a brave face. They couldn't comprehend the fact that she made that conscious choice for herself. Um,
Yeah. I can
you'll be
imagine.
able to, yeah, you'll be able to kind of shed more light on that one.
Well, I mean, honestly, for me, I was always so vocal about it that nobody either they didn't dare because they were maybe afraid of what will come or whatever. But I was very clear about my very conscious choice and my husband's choice. Also, having married a Swedish guy, and those men, they are really trained by women. You know, feminists, they really cleaned out in Sweden. So he was tending to himself very well, and he's doing the laundry, he is doing whatever he's doing. I mean, we have a great relationship. So that was a beautiful match there made in heaven for me. But honestly, when it comes to children, I mean, as long as you can choose whatever you want and you're true to yourself, that's fantastic. It's great for everybody. But what I find interesting is the programming that women actually are the ones that are attacking other women. It's not the men so much.
Yeah.
That's what I see. And I was like, okay, that is talking about oppressing the divine feminine by other females.
Yeah.
There's
But,
something to be said there.
but again, this is programming.
Yeah.
A lot of work. The oppression of the divine feminine. That we're looking at centuries of programming that turns women against women. I found it when I first moved to Spain, because as I said, I came from a little village, and I had my set of girlfriends, and okay, I was a single mum, but I had relationships. I wasn't a Puritan, and they had their husbands, and like everyone, you have moments when there's arguments, or you hate them, or you've had enough. That's it. Da, da, da. Relationships are it's difficult. There are always dynamics there, and we just used to pick up a bottle of wine and go and knock on the other one's door and go, I hate them. I hate them. That's it. I'm leaving them. I'm not doing anything more. And there was nothing more. There was that feminine support. It was very interesting. So for me, when I moved to Spain, it was really shocking, because I'd grown up. I didn't realize the extent of the programming that was out there that turned, feminine against feminine. But when I moved to Spain, I was horrified. I was completely naive. I was so green, I'm going to be honest, because I'd never ever experienced anything like that in my life. How just the slightest thing said would be twisted and turned, and it would be like an open door for another woman to kind of jump in. And I was just like, whoa, what's going on here? So yeah, it really kind of opened my eyes in that sense. And obviously now working a lot internationally, I see a lot of the dynamics of what's happening in the States, and you look at childcare and the way that they have opinions and they bash each other verbally about how they're bringing up their children, and that one-upmanship. And even with career women, it's especially in the 80s, it was like, who can be the busiest, who can be the most stressed. It was like a competition.
Yeah.
But that's all. It's all programming. If you look at television, if you look at, I mean, the one thing that I've noticed, kind of moving into the 2000s to now 2020, is the sexual deprivation. That I find really concerning. I'm going to be honest. It's the right. Okay, if you watch mainstream movies and it's a gangster movie, or it's any kind of movie now, you will see that there's very few without there being a striptease or a lap dance, or it's that constant putting down, that constant, trying to think of the word, the deprivation of what the woman is. They no longer hold them on a pedestal. It's because women have been saying we want equal rights. It's, instead of taking them off the pedestal and bringing them down to, so they plant their feet on the floor, what they've actually done is they've kind of just kicked it down so they're led on the floor. Does that make any sense? Am I making energetically wise?
It does, yeah. But there are also a lot of films that are being produced about kick-ass women taking power.
Yeah, but absolutely there are, and Netflix is responsible for a lot of that, but they've had to fight for that, and they tend not to get the same funding for those movies. The fact that they are determined to make them really good movies is very often down to the producers and the actresses, not the actual production team and financing. And Hollywood has a massive, I mean, you're saying about, Hollywood has a massive role in a lot of the deprivation. It's like video games. People don't realize the subconscious, the sublingual messaging. Miguel, my partner, he likes to play video games, and that's fine. That's how he chills out. I find them really, really violent. I don't, I just
Mhm.
don't. We're chalk and cheese when it comes to that energetically. But I kind of looked up from what I was doing the other day, and he was playing a game, and in the background there was a woman being beaten up, and I said to him, "Are you not going to do?" Because obviously he's got this little man that's running around shooting people, which is, that's another story altogether. But I said to, I said to him, "Are you not going to do anything about that?" And he looked at me really shocked. Now he's not a bad man.
Mhm.
He's got a really good, caring heart,
Yeah.
and yet it hadn't occurred to him until I said, "Go and save that woman." It
Yeah.
hadn't occurred to him to step in. And I was watching something. There was a little little scene, one of those YouTube, I can't remember what it was, um, instant cam things
Mhm.
came up on my feeds the other day because of the research that I actually do. Um, and it was a boy, he couldn't have been no more than 8 or 9, in a hamburger joint. And other kids came in and started bullying him, but really bullying. It wasn't just name calling. This was full on physical bullying. And there were adults in there just looking on, and not one of
Mhm.
them stood up and said anything.
Mhm.
And but this has a lot to do with the programming, the sublingual messaging that is on our mainstream television.
Yeah, I don't watch it, but I can imagine it would be horrifying. So
Yep,
I stopped watching 12 years ago. I
yep,
don't see any value. But what you know what you say actually, we were scanning films with my husband, and we noticed that before 1990s there were still very many nice films being produced. Then something happened, and like literally 95% of films are just about violence,
violence.
terror, fear, catastrophes, and disaster,
Yeah,
basically. So
yeah.
honestly, you have to 1 in 100 films will be something cute, you know?
And it's intentional. That's
Yes, of
why I
course.
say Hollywood has a lot to do with this. It's intentional.
Yes.
I mean, like you, I mean, I do have stuff that comes onto my radar because of the research that I'm actually doing, because of the projects that I'm
Yeah.
actually involved with. But I don't sit and watch television per se. I think the only mainstream television I watch is MasterChef. Um,
Mhm.
um, but it's out there and it's constant.
Oh yes,
And
absolutely.
it's
If
it,
people,
it's
yeah. Yeah.
it's this sublingual messaging. I know with my daughter, I know when she was a teenager, I had a massive fallout with her. Um, and it took about 3 days of battling for her to actually understand why I was so upset, because she was of the generation where there was a lot of hip hop and rap. Um, and within that, there started that trend of the girls calling each other their bitches.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that so degrading.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, from an energetic point of view, it's
Mm-hmm.
an absolute put down. And this is what people don't understand. They go, "Oh, well, it's just a word." And I'm guilty of it as well. 20 years ago, I can remember picking up Men from Mars, Women from Venus, and kind of throwing the book across the room thinking, "Oh, what a load of budlum. It's just words. It's just a play on words."
Mm-hmm.
Until I got into energy, until I actually understood the energies behind these words and how profoundly they affect our psychology.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Um,
totally. I mean, everything is energy vibrating at a certain frequency, and so are the words.
yeah,
Totally.
yeah. Yeah, and I think this is when people go, "Oh, it's just words, it doesn't matter."
Mm-hmm.
Take a step back. How is that affecting? What energy is that bringing to you? How is that a high vibrating energy?
Absolutely.
Because if
Absolutely.
it's not high vibrating, if it's anything less than love, it will drag you down and it will build until you feel like you're walking through treacle. And
Yeah.
that's why, I'm a true believer that the midlife crisis has absolutely nothing to do with age and everything to do with energy.
Yeah.
That we picked up so many bags and stored and kept hold of so much negative energy that actually doesn't, it's not needed, it doesn't function
Mhm.
for us.
Yeah.
um, but we've not learned how to care for our energy, or the majority of people have not learned how to care for their energetic body, that all gets stored, and then life becomes heavy, it becomes monotonous, they can't move, and so they
Absolutely.
look for diversion outside of themselves.
Yeah, but you talk about middle age crisis. What about, we talked before we went live, we talked about perimenopause, PMS. What is that? Did native women have PMS, you think? I don't think so.
No, again, it's programming. It's to give excuses for not actually honoring the cycle of a female.
Yeah.
We're meant to, I was brought up with the periods being called the curse. That was, oh, she's got the curse. Like, it was something disgusting. It was something that needed to be kept secret. I mean, how warped, how degrading is that, to be taught as a child, a young, going into womanhood, that you're cursed, that every month you have the curse.
Well, what is there to be said about it? You look at the commercials when there is menstrual pads being promoted and there's water on them because blood is too gross to show.
Yeah. And yet it's the most natural, it is a cycle of life. It's
But
a
look
cycle
at
of life.
the what do you call it, the separation there. So it's okay to do bloody murder on films and gross and whatnot, but it's not okay to show the most natural thing, right? Because it's not hygienic or whatever it is that they are thinking it is not.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. And when we go back to ancestral history, and look at we've got the red tent fact, where where women would actually get together and they would nurture each other. They wouldn't be stabbing each other in the back. They would be, that's the very worst of the masculine energy being brought into the feminine.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying, and I was guilty of it as well. In my younger years, I was guilty of it. It takes a time to kind of really come into and balance those energies, but they would nurture each other. And it was honored as well, because the masculine was more balanced. That cycle of the female was honored. It was revered, because they knew that was the seed of life.
Yes.
And now we're, without being crude, we're supposed to block it by sticking tampons up, take medication, fill our bodies full of chemicals. There's all sorts. And I'm not saying those things shouldn't exist, because women do have the choice where they didn't in the past. But we need to be real about what we're actually doing to our bodies.
Definitely. And look at this, what really shook me, because it went so deeply into my awareness, when I was in a restaurant and I went to the toilet, and there I see this space where you can tend to your baby, go feed your baby in the toilet, change your baby in the toilet. So I was just like, okay, so you have to go to somewhere in a corner to breastfeed your baby, maybe ideally hide in the toilet. What is that about? What is wrong with that?
Yeah, because
people looking funny at the woman feeding her child again.
Yeah, and I don't know whether you've noticed it. I actually threw a wobbly. I was, obviously the energies were kind of like, and my confidence was very high that day. But there was a young woman breastfeeding her baby, and she was decent. She was covered. And she was being very, very discreet, but she had a toddler that decided to go, "What are you doing, Mummy?" Yeah. Of which she could do nothing about. And the men that turned, and they didn't turn out of curiosity, they turned with that sexual look. And I'm sorry, women know the difference. You can feel the energies. You know when somebody's looking out of curiosity. You can know when somebody's looking out of respect. You can know when somebody's looking out of appreciation, because they're around men that look and they appreciate, and that's absolutely fine. And there's men, when men are just looking with sexual predatory. And there were at least 4 in the restaurant that turned with that look of sexual predatory. And I just couldn't keep quiet. I have to say, I was kind of like, and I was told, don't make a scene. And I was just absolutely mortified for this woman, because I could easily feel and see what was actually happening. And yet she was not in a position, she was in a very vulnerable position because she couldn't get up and walk away.
Yeah.
It's
Good for you. Good for you. And that's another part of loving yourself. I mean, if you feel like there's truth to be told, you tell it, girl.
it sometimes gets you in hot water. It's not
Oh,
because
well, whatever. You used to burn us on the stake, so what is a little bit?
Yeah. Well, do you know what? That is exactly what I think, because I've been drowned, I've been burnt,
Yeah,
I've been hung. So yeah, what's a bit more? It's but I think when you're on that spiritual path, you actually get to the point where you kind of, you know, some of your past lives, you know where you are in this life, and you know actually there is a playground. This physical life is a playground. It's about soul expansion and nothing more. It's about growing yourself, growing your soul, and bringing light to the planet. That's all it is. Anything else is a bonus or a minus, depending on your perspective and what's actually occurred.
Yeah, I agree. I agree totally. And well, transforming the oppression into power would be, you know, reacting in that situation from that space of power. I think 100% you transform the situation. The dudes kind of had a reaction, I'm sure. They maybe they were pissed off, or maybe they just realized something. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
You feel better.
Oh yeah, I don't have any regrets. I never do. That's the beauty of it. It's in hindsight, I sometimes think, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that quite like that. But the energy is within me. That's just who I am. That's part of who I am. The times I've had regrets are the times when I haven't spoken.
Yeah.
Always. It's when I haven't spoken. And you get to a point when you get that balance in your life, when you're doing that self-work, when you're walking that path, you get to a point that what other people think really doesn't affect you anymore. Do you intentionally offend them? No. But if they don't like what you have to say, then they can step out of your circle.
You know, I mean, totally. We had a 19-week workshop with what I call them goddesses from all over the world. And I keep saying to them, it's like, you know, people will always have opinions. They will always have opinions. So if you are still relying on outside opinions, well, good luck to you, because, you know, no matter what you do, how skinny you're going to get, if you're going to make, you know, the most amazing body, create the most amazing body, or make money, somebody will always have an opinion about something else, and that's just the nature of the beast.
I don't like to use the phrase because it's bringing that energy, but you will always have haters, and it's not I don't like to think of it as haters. It's just
I know, what you mean.
But you will always have,
well, some sort of contrast.
You will always, when you're walking your authentic self, you will always trigger somebody. But I always look at triggers. I don't think triggers is a bad thing. I always think of triggers as a healing opportunity. So if you've triggered somebody, I feel very blessed, because that means I've given them an opportunity to heal. Whether they choose to do the work is up to them.
Yeah. No, but we talked about, before we went live, we talked about Ho'oponopono. What I love about Ho'oponopono is you've got a problem. You in it. You've got to do the work. So never mind what other person is showing you, whether they are your teacher or your friend. If you get triggered, you've got to do the work.
Yeah.
Because there's something within you that you need to still develop and evolve, right?
Yeah. And it's if you've got triggered, it's because of that reflection. Whatever you've got triggered by, is being reflected back to you.
Yeah, and it's the same with other people, right? It's not.
Excuse me.
Yeah. No worries.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good. It's a lovely concept. But it takes work to get there. It takes the courage to embrace the fact that if somebody triggers you, then it's your responsibility. It's not theirs. Because we're brought up with that codependency. We're brought up with this societal conditioning that if somebody hurts us, we throw it off of ourselves. We don't like the feeling, so energetically we push it away and we try and give it to somebody else, which is how arguments start. Whereas if we don't like something, to get yourself into that space where if you don't like something, you just kind of go, ooh, that didn't feel good. And then you breathe into it and step away from it so that you can look at it. Okay, why didn't it feel good? What did it reflect in me that is still not balanced? That still's making me uncomfortable. That's when it becomes really magical.
Yeah,
But
totally.
it's easier to throw it off. And that's what we're battling against at the moment. That's what you and I do with the programs that we do and the work that we do, is to say, come, we can show you a different way. We can show you a way where it doesn't have to always be a battle. Okay, you're going to have to do some work. You're going to have to face some darkness. But once you've done that, and once you learn how to keep that balance, then you're going to fly through life.
But you know, when there's incredible power in taking 100% responsibility. That is the power of transformation. That is the magic of self-transformation. When you say, okay, me and I am responsible for everything that I experience. It's not to say that this person is not in the, you know, wrong or whatever, they are on their journey, but it is in my life. It is happening in my life. So I've got to do what I've got to do, whether transform, walk away, whatever, the decision is yours. That's the sovereignty, right? The golden age of miracles that we are stepping into now.
Yeah. The one thing you said to me from a coaching perspective, what can we actually do? And you saying that, then it just comes straight in. Replace the words of I always ban. Anybody who does coaching with me, I ban the words but and because.
Yeah.
Because they just lead on to excuses.
Yeah.
When the sentence starts with but and because, it's just an excuse when we're talking about what we're doing and making those changes. And replace it with why. Whenever you're doing something, why are you doing it? Why are you wanting that? Why are you wanting to feel that? And with that allows you to take the layers off. It allows you to really get to know who you are and what's basically what's making you tick, what's turning those cogs.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you.
Well, you'll agree. You do the same, yeah?
Oh, please. Yes, we call them empowering questions, quantum questions, whatever, and we start always with why. Yeah, so there's that frequency there in the field, Claire, when we are syncing.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So then we talked about meditation, we talked about self-love, transforming oppression into power. What's next? As if that's not enough.
Creation, that co-creation. Okay. Again, what are you wanting from your life? How do you want it to look? More importantly, how do you want it to feel? Because everything's frequency, I always get people to tune into the emotions of what they're wanting, because the emotions give us more energy. And so we've got those frequencies. So what do you want your life to feel like? Because the look like, we can get fixated on certain aspects of what we've already been exposed to, and yet in each lifetime we're never exposed to all the abundance that this world has to offer. And so we could actually be closing doors if we become fixated on only what we've already experienced. And so what is it you want to feel? And when you're setting those intentions, when you're going into that creative mode, is what do you want to feel? What do you want to feel? Why do you want to feel it? What are you wanting to create from that emotion? And then you're leaving the doors open for the universe to bring you that emotional fulfillment in whatever form it deems best for you. Because with that co-creation, you will, our higher selves knows us better than we physically know ourselves. Always, when we actually listen to our intuition and our, ladies out there that are not on a spiritual path yet, you will know when you've listened to that gut instinct, that gut reaction. When you have listened to it, it's always right. It's when we don't listen to it that we tend to fall on our face. So whether you're on the spiritual path or not, everybody's connected to their soul self. And that's where that gut reaction, that gut instinct comes from, that intuition. So our higher self will know what will resonate, will know what will bring us joy. We just need to know and learn how to ask for it and allow it to come in without attachments. Is when manifestation falls on its face, when we start putting attachments to it. Always. Always. It's like saying, everybody, I do this a lot when I'm doing workshops and talks and things, as I say to everybody, right, tomorrow, when you go out in the car, really, absolutely, 100 believe that there is going to be a car parking space with ease for you. And those that manage to do it is because they have not gone, I want a car parking space in this road, in that spot, next to this. That you can actually do that with manifestation, but that is further along the road. When you're first starting out with manifestation, allow yourself to be more open, because then it allows to bring that magic energy in of belief. And it's when we believe we can do something is when we actually get to do it.
Amen. Beautiful. Well, that's creation and co-creation with our higher self, not with our ego so much.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, the thing is we will, while we're mastering it. And remember, we're on a journey. It's not something you kind of do overnight. So while we're mastering it, we will be creating from the ego and from our higher self. And so that's where, as you said, taking that full responsibility, because when something shite comes onto our radar, take responsibility that we created it from our thoughts.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't like. They like to take responsibility. They like to take ownership of the really good things that they created and manifested, but they very rarely like to take responsibility and ownership of the tougher stuff that they've created. But everything is created. Everything, where your thoughts go, energy flows, and so you create.
Absolutely. The quicker you can get to that place and understand everything is energy, the more power to you, transformational power to you. And no, words are not just words. Everything matters, because words are actually giving the evidence of what is going on within us, right? So if we get to get conscious with those words, and change them.
It's holding yourself accountable. It's making, I have a little, actually, I just did it with a client before we met, actually. I have a little trick of, especially now with the pandemic and everything that's gone on, it's, everything's been up in the air. We've all kind of been blown away. And there's some people that sit on the fence of vaccine. There's other people that sit on the fence of no vaccine, and there's like a clashing going on. And then we've got all these, government norms of we can do this, we can't do this, and we can do this and we can't do that. That most of us that are conscious kind of go, oh, what? None of that makes sense. But and so this is causing a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear in a lot of people, and not only from the vaccines, but people have lost their jobs, they've lost their income, or their income's been reduced. I found the same. I had to stop the retreats that I was doing. And for me, that was a real kick in the teeth, because they were really just starting after 3 years of doing them, and they were really starting to take off. So it was like, and then I had to cancel all these people, and I was like, so yeah, even me, it's kind of put me into that a little bit of that anxiety, and I had to tell myself to step away from that. I could have stayed there, but I have the tools now in my toolbox to step away and work through that. But the one thing, whilst you're getting those tools, while you're doing that self-work and developing yourself, a really good trick is to put worry, anxiety, and fears on your calendar for a specific time every day.
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah.
Okay, so you say 4:30. Okay, worries, concerns, anxiety are scheduled in for 4:30.
Yeah.
For example. And so when you go into worry, when you consciously catch yourself going into worry, those subconscious thoughts, when you actually catch it, you go, no, you're not now, you're for 4:30. I will deal with you at 4:30.
Yeah.
And then go in and intentionally make yourself go and do something that will bring you joy or happiness, whether that's going making a cup of tea or going sitting in the garden for 5 minutes or whatever it is, to change the energies. But you schedule in that worry, anxiety time. And then
energy,
and then what you do is you honor your ego, because all this is coming from ego, is you honor the ego by going at 4:30, right, okay, what is it you want to tell me? And I can guarantee you, because you've not fed it, when you ask the ego go, I don't know. Because you've not fed it. You've starved it of energy, so it dies. And so you can't remember what your worries and your concerns were.
Yeah.
For a lot of them, not all of them, but for the majority, because what we tend to do is we snowball. We have one problem, and then we create this massive magnet. So all these other problems, it really weren't problems. They were just kind of inconveniences that weren't that important, but we magnetize it to this one problem. So instead of having a little problem like that, we end up with a problem like that, which is not true. But that's what we've done with it energetically, because we fed it. Whereas if we give it a time, we're not feeding it.
Yeah, where energy goes, where focus goes, energy flows, right? So we switch focus.
Yeah. We switch the focus. We switch the focus, but we honor the ego as well. Because it's important to, I don't know about you, but I've heard so many times, oh, how do I kill the ego? No, you don't kill the ego.
I don't want to kill my ego.
The ego is who you are. It's your personality. It's your uniqueness. But you will hear that in a lot of the spiritual groups, and you're kind of like, no.
Good luck
what you
with
want
that.
is bring the ego into balance. Bring it into balance.
I mean, I heard, from a great channeler and medium, Jill Harrison. She was on our podcast many times. He said the ego was given to us as an inner motivator. It actually has its place. It says, no, you can't do it. And then your spirit goes, yes, I can. I'm going to show you that I can. So it's like nice little inner dialogue that we've got going. And it takes us forward because it has its own, dreams and ideas. And then our spirit will shine through. So the ego will surrender. And then we can work together.
Well, I think I can remember reading the book, and I use it. I'm sure it's Accessing Consciousness, where it is, where you allow a three-way conversation between your gut brain, your heart brain, and your actual physical brain, and you allow that conversation. So your physical brain will go, no, that's impossible. Your heart brain will go, but I dearly, dearly want it. And your gut brain will go, absolutely, it's possible. What are you talking about? And so you have this three-way dialogue internally. But that only works if they're in balance, if they're in unison.
But this saying, house divided against itself, it's not going to work, right? So you need to align all those consciousnesses and play ball. And we know that heart is, straight up facts, right? Heart is the strongest electromagnetically vibrating and radiating organ in our body. So if any left brainiacs there want to have proof, well, check the science. Heart is boss.
Heart is boss.
That's not where your ego resides, no?
Yes and no. It doesn't. When you take it to that higher spectrum, and you're talking about heart and that higher consciousness and your higher self, whatever you want to talk, or God. Some people will call it God. But if you've got heartache, if you've not healed the pain, then it can kind of throw you off course a little bit, which is why healing is always so important.
Yeah.
So within those steps that we were talking about, healing would be next, bringing in that self-love and doing the healing work, really getting rid of what no longer serves you, getting rid of, because pain, any kind of pain only really lasts for 80 seconds. After that, whatever you're feeling is brought in by the mind. And so if you've got a replay going on about, oh, he hurt me, that's dreadful, he was so mean, blah blah blah, and you're kind of 3 weeks in, you're actually doing that to yourself, because what they did 3 weeks ago was an 80-second stab.
Yeah.
And everything else since then, you've been replaying. You've just put it on replay, and you have been actually injuring yourself.
Exactly. Definitely. Beautiful. And we had 55 minutes. Look at that.
Wow.
Boys and girls, if you'd like to work with Claire, go to claireatyeo.com. If you have any questions, anything else, you will have to put them in the comment box, because now we cannot put this on IGTV. If we're going to go over an hour, we could talk for another hour, I'm sure. But not in this segment.
Yeah, keep it in an hour.
Yeah. Final words, beautiful Claire.
Just be brave enough to be yourself. Don't look at other people. Don't take on the perceptions of what society wants you to be. Be you, be brave and be bold, and just live in the power of what brings you joy.
Perfect. Beautiful. I love that one. And take it to your heart, people. Filter it through your entire being, and it will resonate in all the right places. From my heart to yours, we will see you next week. I mean, me, myself, and I, and my next guest.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on, and I hope it's helped.
Beautiful. Thank you
Take
so
care.
much. I'm gonna check it out on YouTube and Facebook. Subscribe to our channel. You will get notification about all the upcoming and past broadcasts. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you so much.